Hi everybody, welcome to the 10 steps, and we are at part 7. So this and 3 weeks more, and that's basically all you've got me for as far as the boudoir business getting going is concerned. The good news is we do have a new series kind of continuing on from there. It's about commercial photography. So we'll basically watch that. So remember, if you're following this series as well, we're live at 5 on a Wednesday where you can kind of catch up with some boudoir photography. During the lockdown times, we've been having a lockdown model, so we've been shooting quite a lot of boudoir. And basically, we've got that for, as I said, the next 4 weeks. So if you saw us last week, we were photographing boudoir in the pool, so in the little paddling pool or swimming pool, whatever you want to call it. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out yet, I definitely head over to the YouTube channel to kind of see that and so on. Today specifically, we're looking at the hotel. And I thought instead of just kind of looking at pretty slides with text on and everything else, we just jump straight into what I've got is 3 sessions that are all kind of demonstration sessions. One was with the early days of The Apprentice with John and Ozzy, and the other 2 are from our series when Becca worked for us, and she was our full-time boudoir stroke showgirl, demonstrator, sales girl, and everything else with things really. So we're going to be looking at those, all right? But specifically when we're looking at venues to hire, a hotel or a nightclub is an easy one for us to really kind of jump on board with straight away. Now, at present, it might be very difficult to obviously get into the likes of a hotel to do some demonstration, but it could be a good time for you to have some discussions with some hotel owners, some boutique owners, to see how you could possibly work together through 2021 and 2022 and so on with it. Nightclubs are also really a good venue, and that's in fact where we're going to start off, because the first shoot is basically, as I said, it's with the apprentices John and Ozzy. We introduced prime lenses, wide apertures, and LED light into them, and we also threw them in at the deep end, and we did boudoir. Now, both of the apprentices, John and Ozzy, went on to create some form of a business based on boudoir anyway. And in fact, John Moore's is predominantly just boudoir now as well. So, I mean, they're the fear of God. If you ever watch that series with it, perhaps Jay can find it for you, and it's something to watch during your lunchtime today. But it'll be good to actually go and see. But we hired a small nightclub around the corner from our studio at the time in Pontypridd, which also had a small hotel attached to it. Now, even though their boutique hotel rooms were beautiful, the actual nightclub bar was much more my kind of thing. All right, so basically we're going to go through quickly these images just so I can explain what I'm looking for in a venue, and then we'll look at 2 different hotel shoots with the same model, i.e. client, to actually give you an idea of the kind of session flow and everything else within things, all right? So the first things first, when I'm looking at a venue, I'm really looking at, is there a window? Yes, and if so, can I use it? And if so, can I control the light? I'm looking at, is there a bed, and a bed that is attractive enough to use as a part of the boudoir shoot? It doesn't always have to be a part of my boudoir room. The suite is usually the sofas, the chairs, the bathrooms themselves. Anything near a window is usually what I'm aiming towards, okay? So that's what I'm going for. Dramatic furniture is always a plus when I'm looking to hire a hotel room, suite, club, whatever it would be. And boudoir, if you can find the right kind of club and it is available to you, clubs are a really good location, as long as they don't smell of beer, you know, but they're a really great location because you can guarantee they are not being used during daytime. Now, it all depends on whether you can kind of hire it for 100 quid or so, but they are really, really great kind of locations, as we'll see now in a minute and things really. I also want to look for mirrors and glass. So are there any mirrors in the bedroom itself or in the bathroom? Is there any glass that I can shoot through or use as reflective surfaces? That might be a tabletop. It might be a glass in a you call it, a wardrobe or a cupboard or on a bar or whatever it would be and things really. I'm really looking for those reflective elements. And then, of course, what lighting is naturally within the room. So as far as the wall lights, the overhead lights and so on, I want some form of dramatic light. Now, the first thing that we're going to see in this shoot of Becca, Becky D, in fact, you can find her pretty much on most of the modeling platforms and as far as the glamour kind of sites and things really. But Becca, I've shot Becca since she was 18, so that's a long time ago. I first photographed her when I was retired, so that would be in between 2001 and 2008. And you'll basically be able to see shoots that we've done of her. But again, the images that we're seeing here are actually all lit with a small LED light. Jay, I wonder if you could ask Brandon for one of the cheap Chinese LEDs and bring it through for me, if that's okay. So as far as this kind of little light is concerned, it's mainly to highlight the body or the face or give me separation light. The first thing to note, though, is that most of the light within this scene to kind of spill onto the body is all the natural light, i.e. from the window or the overhead lighting. So when I talk about the window lighting, I'm not bothered whether it's got drapes or whether it's got blinds like we're seeing here, but I want some kind of controllability. The LED lighting, whether it's a torch, a wand, or a kind of an LED panel, is designed to actually just be focused on to the point that we want to. And as far as the look and the feel, these are heavily stylized kind of very either black and white grain, or they've got almost like a polarization, Polaroid kind of effect to them and things really. I used to use on-one filters many years ago, and there was a few in there that I just used by default and things really, and these were kind of a few of them. But as far as the kind of the look and the feel, so this is actually a seating area in the club, as you can tell from the cushions, but it acts a bit like a day bed. I love the background wallpaper, and I love the kind of the lighting coming through from the windows on the right hand side. And by doing that, of course, it is giving me this natural interest in the background and not just focusing in on the model itself. Obviously, the closer I get to the window, I can start to use the window light, if it's there, to illuminate the likes of the face of the body. I can then use the supplementary light, like LED or torch, whatever it be, to actually focus in and actually add some more drama into the actual body themselves and things. Thanks, Jay. Leaning away while he gives it to me. So for those of you kind of on live, these are the cheap little LED lights that we kind of bought years and years ago, about 60 quid to really kind of get, it might even be less than that, it might have been 60 quid with a battery. But these are the little kind of really full on lights, or you could pretty much go down to the local filling station and pick up in some of the offers some of these kind of little small torches or inspection lights that you can use as well with it. But check out this film. I hope Jay's going to put the link there for you and you'll be able to follow it through. When we're photographing against the light, I'm also not afraid, especially when I'm working with a location as dramatic as this, to give more dramatic images. So I don't always have to light the body or the face up. I'm just trying to light what I want to actually bring the drama within the scene. Now, obviously, when we're using the likes of LED lights, shutter speed is equal to the working exposure. So in other words, not like flash, where I can actually start to open up the shutter speed down to very, very slow. It means that with the LED light, basically shutter speed and aperture and ISO are all in the triangle, whereas with flash, it's only really aperture is the, and ISO of course, the main kind of basics of the actual exposure itself. So I can slow the shutter speed down. Obviously, yes, more of the ambient light within the room will start to take effect. But really the LED, it doesn't allow us that control. So looking for locations to really use, a window is where I wanted to begin, because windows the majority of the time is where we're going to head towards. Now this is on the balcony, on the entrance up to the club. And love the chair. That's the main thing. I love the glass on the top of the table by the chair. That adds that reflection element as well. But there is quite a big high window off to the right hand side. It's still quite a way away. So if possible, I'm going to shoot very high ISO. I'm still going to shoot around about f4 as a rule, you know. But when I'm doing a full length image like this, I can pretty much drop down to f2, 1.8, 1.2 even, kind of, you know, it's really down to what your lens will allow you to do. But this is where the likes of the 24 to 105 lens, if it was say like an f4 maximum, is really going to be a problem. So that's where obviously I'd encourage you to get out your prime lenses, where they're usually much quicker. So again, big light source further away from her, or a smaller light source further away from her, will create a kind of a fuller body kind of look and feel with it. Obviously, we can still bring the drama in by using the likes of the LED or the flash actually onto the face. Again, looking at how we're using the balcony as a part of the prop, like we would a bed head or a bed stand or wherever it be. So you get the kind of idea of what we can kind of create without a huge amount of work. So as far as the kind of location, window light is key, and then we're using the likes of supplementary light to add into the image. The reason I like to work with LED in a hotel room or in a club as we are is because it's much quicker. There is always some dramatic light in a hotel or in a club compared to in a studio environment. Why? Because probably they've had it interior designed, they've had it stylized, like you can see here with the dramatic kind of the chandelier coming through. We've got that lovely wallpaper in the background reflecting some of the light. So it's a natural, simple, easy body shot without any real work. So I don't need to add in the extra light. So when we're using a hotel or a club or even a client's own home, think about the natural light before the reflector before a flash, and flash kind of as the last resort, so you can work much quicker. It will involve, obviously, as I said, slower shutter speed, wider apertures, but we can use these for effect. But even, you know, the chairs that are in locations, sometimes you've got to move them from one location to another. But in the likes of a club and a hotel, they're probably going to be very, very close to where you want them to be anyway. So we can use the chair in a simple, soft or erotic way, depends on your kind of style, your styling. We can also kind of reposition a chair into a different part of the club to make use of things like downlighters, especially when they're very, very powerful. You usually found that most nightclubs are very, very dark. So basically, it really does allow us to kind of bring some real drama into the scene without any real work. So again, these boutique hotels, you can even find some the Airbnbs, which have some really dramatic kind of rooms to rent. So kind of look out for those as well, and they're much cheaper again. But being able to move a chair around a location to maximize the use of the natural light within the scene really does kind of help us. Sofa will replace a bed if a bed is not around. So that's what I'm saying. You don't have to necessarily just think, oh my God, I can't shoot here because there isn't a day bed or there isn't a bed or whatever it is. Just think about the kind of the dramatic kind of furniture that is there. Will it kind of supplement it for you? Will it allow you to kind of use the location and things really? I mean, you can see with all this fantastic plaster work above and behind and all the little bit of light kind of spilling around the place. Very, very dramatic images, no work at all, whereas we can overlight the same scene and things really. Even some wallpaper, as we're seeing here, it was a bit of a fun, this kind of shot where it's kind of smelling a butt and things really, but I know you wouldn't do that with a real client, but with a model shot or with an Instagram shoot, you can actually start to make use of some of the kind of the key things. And if you do have some Instagram shoots to do, and obviously we've been covering that on the Academy over the past few months as well. But if you've got some influencers or some would-be influencers, there might be a chance that you can make use of certain locations as long as you promise to actually publicize the venue as well with it, things really. So trust is the key thing. Once you've kind of been using a location once or twice, then obviously that location knows how you work, knows that you put everything back where it was, knows that you're not going to steal anything, allows you to kind of work in there without kind of really being followed up and things. So you'll find that once you, as I said, you've used the location once or twice, then it'll give you the ability to actually go on and use it time and time again. I mean, I love this kind of PVC, almost fake bed head, and that's why it's perfect for boudoir photography again and things really. But again, just allows us that excuse to kind of really work fast and kind of with all these great venues. I meant to finish off down here, sorry. So again, this is just actually a covering of all the store cupboard. That's all that kind of padded thing works with. But it's a great place to use for the likes, as I said, as an Instagram shoot. And they are around there. Obviously, as an old guy, doesn't go clubbing anymore, you've got to kind of try and find out what is kind of available for you. And ask those who go clubbing is the easiest thing. But when we're trying to bring everything alive, there might be a time that you start to bring more of your studio flash in or your portable flash in to allow to have a lot more kind of light within the image, a lot more control, a lot more soft light or whatever it would be. So again, even though today we're talking about a hotel, you shouldn't forget the likes of a hotel, a club suite or whatever it is. I know questions are live as we're going. Jay, is there any questions on hiring a club before we get going?
No, there's no questions. I've just posted the link to the first part of that session with John and Ozzy, but it is one of the older ones, so it is in standard definition, but there are links to 3 parts there.
Brilliant. Okay, mate, thanks. Anything else that you think that we should cover on a hotel hire, or sorry, a boudoir kind of shoot in a club? CCTV, that's something I've got to talk about as well, because obviously most clubs will have CCTV in the environment itself. And that's all I need to check with, especially if I was using it for a client shoot, is that we ensure that the CCTV footage won't be available to all past a certain date. That again is discussed with the club when we hire it. I'm just trying to think of anything else. National indemnity goes without any kind of question with it. Anything else? Oh, there's a few things I forgot about it. Anyway, I'm sure it'll come back to me no matter what. So club is really, really a great idea. Right, let's go into the hotel suite. We'll start in the color one, but my favorite one is the black and white one, okay, because it's all natural light or most of it and so on with it, all right? So let's look at Becca, and she was, again, our model for a year. Because I was writing a new book, plus we had the academy running, plus we needed a showgirl for selling with our sales guy as well. When I say a showgirl, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's not like walking around a wrestling ring with a sign on. It means that she's accompanying me. So I've basically got somebody who's good enough to photograph. I've used men in the same way. Somebody who's going to be there to help the sales, and somebody will kind of assist as far as laying out all the literature and everything else if I'm doing workshops and demonstration and so on with it. But when we need a model full time, obviously we'll basically hire them for weeks or months or even a year like Becca was and things really. So again, that's a different kind of thing. Right, so here we're looking at a hotel room. It's basically we've arrived the afternoon before a workshop on the next day. Because of TPA, I need to maximize my time. So we'd already kind of arranged that we were going to shoot at least one style of boudoir shoot, no matter what, on the day that we arrived, as soon as we arrived. We'd already arranged with the hotel that we were going to arrive about midday because we don't usually get to check in till 2. And we'd already discussed with them as far as the room was concerned. They sent us some hotels. We paid a little bit more, but we were there basically photographing by, kind of 1 o'clock kind of time and things really. So the great thing about shooting with natural light is that there's no technical. The longest technical is to make sure that video and my sound is basically going to work If this was just for me arriving at a hotel suite and I'm using natural light and it's a room that I use time and time again, basically I could pretty much shoot around about a client every hour and a half with a little bit of makeup and everything else. If you are going to hire a hotel suite to do the shoots with, it's usually a better idea, especially if you're going to try and do 5 or 6 shoots during a day, that you've also got another room that makeup can be done in. So it basically allows you to move from makeup room into the shooting boudoir suite, as it were, to allow you, if you've got interjoining rooms, that makes it a lot easier, of course, because the client can actually kind of then walk through to the other, and then another client is going to be in makeup anyway. So an interjoining room or a suite is kind of the preference with it. This is just a 4-poster room. I wouldn't call it a suite. It's basically just got a little bit of space. All right. So I haven't chose some of the big kind of opulent kind of locations that we've used in the past. I've chosen 2 little hotel rooms. One is the 4-poster. One is just one, pretty much in any hotel throughout the planet, you'll basically be able to find. This specifically, when we're working near the window, like we are in the beginning here, is using the natural sun kiss coming through it. Now, you're going to be lucky or unlucky. You know, I live in Wales. The majority of my work is in UK. There's no guarantee we're going to get any sun coming through. So when we do have sun, it instantly creates a dramatic, almost Hollywood style of lighting, no matter what, this focused kind of light and things. I absolutely love it. Forget the colouring, because that's applied in the post-production once more with one of the odd one kind of filters that we used to use and things. Really, I don't use them anymore. So as far as the look and the feel is concerned, this can be achieved either through the natural sun coming through a window, or being reflected from a mirror. So the sun hit it in a mirror and then coming in to control the shape and things, really. So when I've got a strong light as this, it doesn't matter what my flow of a normal shoot is, I know that I could lose the sun at any minute. So I want to kind of jump straight in on it no matter what. Now it looks like it's a warm winter's afternoon. I promise you it's nothing to do with that at all. It's just the warmth of the sunlight coming through. We're exaggerating it, but we're also picking up some of the warmth of the interior light as well, kind of what's going on in the background. So here I'll just move a chair towards a window in this case and work as fast as I can, going through the flow, getting a little bit of kind of either feet up or going through my kind of chair flow. We did create a film last week during filming with our lockdown model, Kelsey. And basically, we've got posing on the chair. I'm not quite sure when that's going live, Jay. Perhaps you can check up and kind of we can answer that as well with it. But that's a really good film to actually watch, especially if you're getting going. Remember, this 10 steps to starting a boudoir business can be applied into an existing business as well with it, things, okay? So this case, I'm shooting through. It looks like I'm shooting through the curtains from outside in, but it can also be achieved by standing behind the curtains and allowing yourself to almost look like this voyeur. But kind of posing up on the chair, if it's a very, very small chair, it can be difficult, especially with a fuller figure, but it's just making use of what you can. So you can start to see now the chair, it's a normal kind of bucket chair. It's kind of quite solid in its kind of arms and everything else. So it does really constrict the body and what we can do, but I can still get a heel up onto the seating part of the chair. I might be able to, with a small or a slight body, to be able to curl up on the chair as well, but I can still work my 4 poses that I demonstrated in last week's film that we created. So we'll try and get that live as soon as we can. I'm sure Jay's chasing it at this point now. And then you'll basically see how kind of fast you can kind of work through it. So looking at bra, using the hand, remember as a rule of thumb, instead of you using like she's done here, okay, kind of this is like the claw we call it. Instead of doing that, try and use the middle 2 fingers and the thumb And that will allow you to kind of really pick and choose, and it looks more like a gentleness. It also can work actually how they kind of run the hand lower down the body and everything else with it. So if you're just getting going, it kind of gives a good idea. So chair near a window, maximize the images as quick as you can to make use of the sun. Then I'm looking for the mirrors in the room, try and get as close to those, try and reflect some of the light, try and use some of the reflections, and just to kind of go through it. I'm not always having to light the face, okay, especially because this is boudoir photography. I think of it at times like it's an advert for the lingerie in my head. So I start to kind of revert into commercial photographer mode and just going through it. Obviously, different figures, different positions. Next week, remember, we're looking at the fuller figure boudoir and how we can basically control the bust, control the shape, control the arms, and kind of all the kind of thing about control, all right? But with a smaller sized body, what we can kind of create. So again, when we're getting close to the windows, don't forget your silhouettes, leaning against the window wall, which can create either a silhouette if you expose for the background, or obviously an overlit, backlit image when you're kind of exposing for the flesh. Moving through then, so in fact what she's on here, if we flick forward, you can just see she's on like a window seat, and in fact what looks like behind her is the outside. There's a small little wraparound terrace to this room, and there's some garden furniture outside. Now I quite like the texture that it was bringing out. The first things first that I would do is kind of get rid of the distraction, but as it was, I thought it was actually bringing something of interest better outside than a brick wall. So I kind of kept that in place with it and things. So window seat is a real bonus, but that can be the same as putting a seat near to the window. And once more, using this kind of reflection to kind of give us that extra little bit of 3-dimension. Then move into another window. If I do have a high window ledge like we have here, and it was the only window in the suite, I wouldn't be afraid, as long as it's safe, to actually get something for her to stand on, to sit onto this ledge, if possible, not to lay on, but to actually sit on anyway. If it was much, much wider than what we're seeing, then we might even be able to actually use it as a kind of opposing ledge as well with it and things really. So again, once more, turning either towards the window or against the window to create the kind of the flow across the body to give that 3-dimensional shape. And then kind of shooting nearer towards the furniture, like wardrobes and mirrors within the room, just allows us, let me just check what you're seeing. Got to show that, sorry, for myself, just so I can see it. Mirrors and wardrobes I love. The reason being, they're often either very highly textured, metallic, woods, coloured, you know, whatever it be, or they're mirrored. And obviously the last thing I really want to do is shoot flat onto the mirror, because that's going to basically be seeing camera or light or flash. But where possible, hiding the majority of the mirror with the client's body or shooting at an angle to it to kind of create it. So as here, we've got a small narrow mirror on the wall. I know we're moving over to the bed. We're going to come back to the wardrobes that mirror was close to. Okay, on the bed, goes without saying, laying on the back, laying on the front, the kind of the flow of the poses that we'd naturally do. You've seen those before, okay? And it just gives us that little bit of kind of, you know, the intimacy without the erotica. We don't need this in this shoot. It was designed to be more classical, more girl next door and everything else, but still making her feel great. Could be an image, a shoot that we're doing with the likes of Bridal Boudoir, especially if you've got a bride who's getting married in a hotel, in a certain beautiful hotel and things really. Often they'll donate the suite to us leading up to the wedding day, a weekday, for us to use for her bridal boudoir shoot and things really. So don't be afraid to ask. The worst they can say is no. Once we've kind of done the basics, we can then start to actually follow that through then and use the different areas of the room that perhaps will add the creative element. For posters are okay. For me, I'm all right. I much prefer if this was a client who wanted more of a Boudoir Confidential, a 50 Shades of Grey kind of thing, then the kind of the posts and the pillars work really, really well, especially if we were doing a little bit more of an erotica kind of shoot and things really. As is, this, as I said, is a more of a girl next door shoot. That was the whole point of it. Focusing it in on the different areas of the body or of the face. This shoot specifically, we made sure that we were looking at camera more. There's two real types, I think, of boudoir photographer. One where the client is looking at photographer. That might be you. The other is where the client is not looking at the photographer, and that would be me. So I tend to actually shoot more voyeuristic than basically face-to-face. So this shoot specifically was done more, as I said, in that face-to-face element. And I've obviously edited it down and kind of made the selection and blah, blah, blah. But there would be kind of images where she's got a nice little smile on her face as well and things with that. Create a creative element. So at the end of all shoots, no matter what, I want to spend at least 10 minutes. So if it was an hour, where possible in the likes of a boudoir, I want to do something different at the end for me, for my portfolio, for advertising images or whatever it would be. I want to do something that I haven't got. So when we've got things like almost see-through wardrobe glass here, this allows us naturally to either use the out of focus or as I've done here, this is clear glass, and I've just out focused the lens to kind of give us the kind of the almost looking through kind of idea. Now, obviously, the way that glass will shoot, especially when it's out of focus, it will start to make the body look deformed. It's better when we've got diffused glass, because then I'm sharp in focus. It's only the out of focus of the lens that will create almost this alien body with it and things really. So be aware of that when you're kind of out focusing stuff too much, that it will create that kind of look and feel. But you can really get some great images and things really. And then we've focused in. Getting as much light as you can coming through that glass will add more kind of drama than anything else as well. So this could have been done, especially if we were doing more of a 50 Shades Boudoir Confidential, as I said. It would be more nude than it would actually dressed and things really. So this would be going through the boudoir to nude kind of style of session and things really. But you get a good idea here on how a simple room suite can create for us, even with the girl next door shoot, a kind of a really great variety. All right, so let's go into one of my favorite shoots that I did with Becca, Hotel One. And this is, again, we were there to do a bride and groom workshop the next day. She was my bride, and Carl, my son, assistant videographer at the time, was basically there to obviously be the groom and things really. We were, again, once more, we always made sure that when Becca was with us, we were photographing a boudoir shoot every single different hotel that we were in. And we did this for months and months and months to actually show the kind of different variety. Some of it was used on Academy, or what was named Photo Training for You at the time. Others was used on training DVDs that we were selling and so on with it. Okay, so the difference being in this location, it's a room with very, very low, small slit windows or very, very high. It is a hotel room that you would probably go, oh my God, I don't want to work in here. Excuse me. However, for me, and for the look and the feel and the tone and the texture to monochrome, and for especially something where we need to build up to a little bit more kind of erotica, boudoir confidential. Doesn't have to be nude in any way. We didn't do nude with Becca at all, but we can start to bring in the styling, the focus of the lens, the way that we actually position the body as well, the animation. We can start to bring in a little bit more of erotica into the whole look and feel. But it doesn't mean that the shoot has to start there, because I always feel it's nicer to build up with it and things really. So let's kind of get into this shoot. I'm not sure if there is an image that shows the room as much as we did a minute ago. It kind of looks like it's pretty much all shot on the 85mm prime or 50mm prime, whatever it be, but it feels more 85 than anything. So first things first, chair near a window. Like I was saying to you, this just happens to be diffused. If there's not enough light in the room, undiffuse the light. So in other words, take away the drapes or whatever it be and uncover it. Obviously, if you're looking onto a car park and people are looking through, make sure you're using the covering over the window. Otherwise, the client or the model is going to feel a little bit embarrassed, and that would be bad form as you as a photographer. Okay, so always protect the client, always protect the model before anything else. That's my best advice that I can do to you. Be as the best gentleman that you can ever be as a male photographer, and it's all that old-fashioned ladies first kind of elegance that you should always bring to your manner. And then as you start to actually evolve together, photographing, then you can start to actually kind of bring it. But you must think of the client before the shoot, no matter what. It doesn't matter what kind of idea you have, especially with boudoir, where people are at their most vulnerable. I'm not talking about models, but even they will feel vulnerable with some of the posing at times. We have to explain what we're doing and what we're photographing as we're going through. It doesn't mean you're taking the camera away from your eye and you're basically beginning to talk to them what you're going to shoot next, but you just need to actually, okay, we're going to move your leg over here, just going to actually just give it a little bit more of a robotic feel, but don't worry, we're protected the genitalia, or blah blah blah, whatever the words are that you use and things, really. Okay, so kind of push the arms together, squeeze the boobs a little bit more, give them some shape, or put the arm underneath and squeeze the right arm across, give it some control, the boobs control. However is your speak to a client. Obviously, in the beginning of the shoot, you'll talk in one way, you'll build their confidence up and up and up. And our idea and our kind of basis is to make them feel superwoman. That's really what we're trying to do. I can guarantee you there's not a woman that I have photographed that hasn't felt empowered when they've actually left and things, really. Okay, so chair by a window, drape, natural light with it and things, really. Just giving the images the feel against the light, obviously to either kind of bleach out or whatever. Now, this is the kind of the whole shoot. I'm going to quickly kind of just flick through, if you don't mind. I'll just talk about the shoot. So once we've kind of moved away from the chair, we're going to kind of eventually move on to the bed, but there's a lot more images to do before we get there. Now, I've kind of left in quite a few images where she's looking at us in the sample that you're seeing, but we're going to narrow it down to actually kind of create the images. You can see from the images where she was just on the chair there and we raised up the leg and we were looking towards the groin. That starts to actually bring that little bit more kind of erotic through natural animation going through. But when you're kind of going to shoot through around about 300 images, 400 images, whatever you do, our job is to actually really kind of pick out the best of the best. And that's what I thought I'd do. We just kind of quickly flick through and kind of give our kind of variety of images. And then we'll actually look at what is the kind of the images that we present towards a client more and things, really. Jay, while I'm flicking through these, any questions there at all? I'll just give it, I'll let you come live a minute. Really what we're doing is, again, we're using reflector. There's no kind of flash going on at all. There are times where we might bring the little mirror out. We've got to always carry a little makeover mirror. It's just about 2-3 inches round. Or we'll bring out the little mag light torch, or we'll bring out the kind of the LED pads, whatever it would be, but it just allows us the kind of the quick mix. Jay, any questions there at all?
Yeah, there was a question when you were talking about this is going back to the club environment. I guess it goes without saying, but a good question. Checking in advance that there is somewhere safe and without CCTV the model can change.
Of course, that is usually the women's loo.
And on the images, I think you did explain what you did, but maybe they missed it. On the first set of Becker's images in the other room, they were somebody's just questioned that they were quite warm. Did you do that in camera or was it in post?
It's in post. You using like the on one presets that used to actually be as a plug-in to Photoshop. I was really in love with them for a while, especially the one look that I created in there. But again, you know, after a while you stop doing it. But I still kind of like the Polaroid shoot, especially when we're photographing the kind of the more boudoir confidential, the edgier kind of imagery. Tends the Polaroid feel looks like they've actually done it themselves and things really, but obviously with the kind of the professional lighting going through it and things really.
Apart from a couple of queries about experience, that's all I got for you.
All right, mate. Good. So it's a good time. We're just coming towards the end there. Let's just go now and actually look at the choice of images. Okay, so we've kind of got my favourite photographs from the shoot. And you might have seen some that you really, really love and things, but that's really down to you. So based on this location, we can see there's a low window, okay? And then there on the other side of the kind of the wall, there's a high window as well. So that's the first thing to be aware of, is that, as I said, there's two types of window. There's a very low one, long and slit as well, and a very high one near bust level, where basically it can also be controlled by the blinds coming down, obviously, and things, but it's pretty much there. So the image on the left, all natural light. Image on the right has an added in LED or a bit of flash, okay, whichever you would use and things really. So that's what we're going to look at. So that's the only thing we're really going to see. So again, starting by the window, no questions asked, whether it's on the chair with the back to the light, whatever. If I didn't have a chair and I couldn't get anything close to the window, I'm not going to drag the bed across. I'm going to sit her on the floor or stand her against the wall or lean her on the ledge or whatever it be, and I've got a shot straight away with it. Oh, wrong button. Sorry, my fault. Okay, then moving camera position along the line of the wall so I can kind of create and some lighting on the face more as far as the exposure is concerned. But again, for me to really shoot in the confidential style where she's not looking at me, she would be interacting with either a piece of lingerie, with a wedding ring, or looking out with the drapes or whatever it is. But again, the exposure can be controlled here. In the same way, we're still sitting on the floor. We've got that beautiful chair there. I like the light. If you were really photographing for boudoir and she wasn't looking at me, as a similar image would have been, the exposure would have been for the bra and the body, and the face would have gone dark. Okay, so that would be the two exposures. Then quickly up onto the bed. I really did like this viewpoint of Becca. And it was one, in fact, I began to add more and more into my boudoir shoots. As a rule, I am an f4 photographer, like I mentioned on, but this image is, what are we on? It's, let me just see, 1.2, 0.4. Let me just see if I can bring these alive. So that is 1.8, in fact. So you can see that it's pretty much gone. You know, we've got one smart kind of focus point, and that's it. So again, for me, I would still work more on the f4. But I have begun to put, since this one shoot, okay, I have used the wider apertures more, but I still like more focus than blur as far as focus is concerned. I can always change the focus in the post-production, but I don't really want anything bigger than f4 unless it's for a commercial shoot. So exposure's going through. I really did love the chair, and in fact, I've been looking around for a chair quite a lot since. Do you remember when we just saw the shot of the face a minute ago, and I said if I wanted to shoot the bra, I'd have a different exposure. That's it. I only technically needed to think of two exposures near the window. One was for the highlight. In other words, that's what we're seeing now. One was for the actual shadow, and I would only change shutter speed, not aperture, as a rule. And if I couldn't choose shutter speed any wider, slower I should say, I would then actually just use ISO to change. So you might have a two-stop difference between the two. So one might be 200th at 4, and the other might be a 60th at 4, whatever you can handle. But I just like to change one thing at a time. I love the tone of these. I really did love it. And I began to actually use a strip box for a good 5 or 6 months at least in demonstration with boudoir at workshops, even at the likes of the photo shows and else. I began to use strip boxes with egg crates on to simulate this look coming through netting, and it just kind of shows that kind of small boudoir effect with a window. It doesn't always have to be honeycomb or whatever. So again, I just really love the kind of the variety, and this as a set of images was truly beautiful. We had it printed up in a print box, and we used it to take around with us on demonstration for quite a while. But this kind of boudoir series of photographs, 36 images. Remember, as a rule of thumb, I'm only going to show the client about 48 photographs anyway. But as a rule, being able to actually, for the client to actually narrow them down to 24 to fit in one of our print boxes was not an issue at all with it. I really did love these pants. I tried to look for them in my size, but they don't do them. I'm joking. I really did love these pants. And again, for this kind of shape of figure, especially if we're in more boudoir confidential kind of shoot, whereas we want to almost titillate with a little bit of bum, a little bit of nipple, and just actually they are so tight around the groin that it really does kind of allow the mind and allow the eye to think it's more than it actually is. And that's what I love. I actually love a covered body more than I do a revealed body. If we're going to shoot nude, let's shoot nude. If we're going to do a boudoir to nude, let's get from one place to another as quick as we can, but making sure it doesn't feel like a striptease show, okay? But when we're going to shoot boudoir, which is lingerie led, and basically we're covered the whole time, let's make it erotic if that's what the shoot is designed for, if that's what the client likes, or let's make it the girl next door, obviously, and then we can kind of keep it similar with it. But I've never been able to find this type of lingerie or this kind of little frilly knicker in the same quality. There are lots of them out there, but not in the same way, but I absolutely love it. This is a slightly grainy, warm black and white as well. So you know where I was saying it's a favorite image? It's because I began to play around. Because we were shooting so much boudoir for Photographer Academy, for the book, for the training and everything else with it, things really, you naturally get bored and you want to try something different with it. So I went, okay, I'm going to just give it a different feel. Like I'm going to go back to the Kodak days of 3200 ASA film, and I'm going to print it as if it's a black and white film going through a color printer, which gives me a natural warmth or a kind of a brownie effect, unless I put a black and white negative over the top. So in other words, when we used to shoot a Kodak 3200 black and white film, it was a black and white film. You print it as black and white, it's black and white. If we put it through a color process, the quickest way for us to get a pure black and white, believe it or not, was to introduce a clear color emulsion as a base to the black and white image. Then it naturally printed pure black and white. If we didn't have the color base, okay, without a lot of kind of the color mixing and everything else, you know, -3 yellow, -4 red, whatever it would be to actually get to the black and white. But we'd end up with this warm tone, and that's where I went back to. Now, that's the benefit that I have working from all my career with black and white and color. I'm more of a black and white photographer than I am a color photographer. So in other words, if I'm looking to actually get machine quality, then black and white prints, how does that work? Now, we used to put through about 2,000 black and white paper a month in the late 90s. That's how much of a black and white photographer we were. But we also had our own color lab to actually process all our color work and things really. So again, this is where we get the lighting and the feeling and the warmth kind of thing. I actually like this kind of voyeur. Now, you might not like it. I think boudoir photography today should have more of this. I think, again, we're in danger of becoming beige with boudoir instead of the edgy erotica that should have it with some clients and things really. So I would encourage you as a boudoir photographer to try and just get a more of a sexy feel into the images instead of just playing safe all the time with it and things really. And that might be just picking up black and white for a change, giving a different styling, a different lighting or whatever it be. Now you can see the reflectors out. Yeah, you can see that uplight is coming in. Now remember that lighting was coming off the floor, very narrow slit of light. So now I've got an uplight. Just got to make sure I'm dropping her head down. You can see it's uplight because of the shadowing on the bra itself is kind of coming through it and things really. All right. But now we can use it to really add almost once more the effect of a small mirror if we're using a small silver reflector. And this would be my real choice of reflector. This case is not a big reflector panel, a very, very small one. About a 12-inch one is a great little kind of reflector to actually have in your bag and things really. Cutting down the light, like I mentioned about if we're working in studio, we're using strip boxes with egg crates, or we're using the likes of a snooted light or a honeycomb light, whatever it be, but kind of concentrating on the frilliness. As I said, I loved these pants. I love to photograph with these pants. Now, on a different client, they could look absolutely terrible. So it is kind of accepting and adjusting to the session and the styling. That's really what we've got to kind of do. And especially when we're hotel room is our only room, and we might have hired this room for the whole day and we've got to get through 4, 5, 6 kind of shoots during the day. You're stuck with it no matter what. But it's kind of what we're mixing with it and things really. I actually quite like, and this is a love-hate, okay? But I like at times to have that shutter shake purposely to almost give us this edginess, especially if we're blocking the blacks and everything else with it. Now, when if that image was coming through the photo critique with us, which we've got another one in a few weeks' time, if that image is going through the photo critique with us, there's almost no sharpness with this image. We've got burnt out whites, block blacks. She's got an expression and she's looking at me and the eyes are black. Cleghorn, how can you ever like that photograph? Because you just said to me that these are some of the favorite photographs that you like. Come on, Cleghorn, you can't do one thing in photo critique and then the next minute you're saying this is nice. Feeling. There's going to be images that you love. Doesn't mean it's a good image, all right? So it's about the essence of the shot rather than the actual shot itself and things really. In a competition, this is shite, it's not going to go anywhere, all right? But in the reality of, if we want to actually kind of add it into the series with it, then it's good, okay? So we can fix that image with her just looking off to the camera, interacting with the brassiere or the strap or the nickel line or wherever it would be and things really. But again, it is always down to what is right for you. And that is our boudoir in the hotel room. So you've seen 3 shoots there, which I hope you've given you some kind of ideas in flow and what I'm looking for as well with it and things really. So we did the club first, and then we actually went on to the same model in 2 different hotels and 2 different days. Questions there, Jake?
Just a couple on this. We've got I think you touched on it, but a question was, are the rates for sort of hiring these just for a day usually cheaper than an overnight? And can you? I think you also mentioned about asking for deals, right?
Yeah, you've got to. I mean, the more you use a place, you know, in the early days, it's going to be more expensive. It will be later on, when you've proved yourself that you're pulling out 800-900 quid a shoot, and you're putting in 4 of it in the day. To spend 150 quid or 200 quid on a hotel room for the day is no big deal. Plus, of course, then you have it overnight till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock the next day and things really. So you can shoot a lot more as long as the hotel understand what you're doing and what you're trying to actually do, and it's a business and so on. They know you're not running a brothel. So again, it's a lot easier to work with hotels that you know of, because then you can always ask in advance, and that's what I'd recommend you to do. So if you're a wedding photographer and you're going to turn your hand to a little bit of boudoir, whether it's for your own brides or something else, having that ability to basically ask the venues that you photograph in all the time, is there any chance that you can have a loan of a room or rate of a room, a special rate, whatever it is, you've got to start to work it. But initially it's going to be more expensive than the long term. But I wouldn't put off hiring the likes of an Airbnb, especially if you're getting going. But that's when you're kind of using models. Then once you've used a location once and you know it's just down the road, then you can speak to the owner and try and work out some rates together, because that's going to be a lot less.
And the last question I've got for you on the photography is how much post-processing do you do to skin retouching, and how much do you do? How much do you suggest?
Yeah, you've got to watch that. So the skin has got to look smooth, not glowy. Yeah, I like a little bit of texture on them. There are some actions though that exaggerate skin scarring. Now, I don't mean what I mean is stretchiness kind of thing on the skin, and you've got to be aware of that. So that is when we would go in and just add in the painting on the Gaussian blur or whatever it would be that you do to it. So in other words, as a rule of thumb, it would be duplicate once the basic retouching is done. Yeah, a quick then action would be to duplicate the layer, add a Gaussian blur of around about between 4 and 8, then basically taking it either into a soft light or a screen light or whatever it would be, reducing that down to about 50%, having the mask inverted so it basically doesn't apply it to the whole image, and that's just going in with a soft brush and applying it on, kind of whizzing across the image, trying to make sure that eyes, lips and nose are always sharp. And texture around the hair and so on. But yeah, as a rule of thumb, I do want a softened skin.
And a question just come in. Do you recommend clothing that would suit the models and clients?
Yes.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So you're talking to them about their shape and form, I guess. Is that correct? And what would suit them better?
Yeah. So there's a difference between models and clients. Yes. So even when we're, so Malia in front of us now, she's our lockdown model for this week now. Okay, so Kelsey's back in another week for 2 weeks with us and everything else with it. But Malia's our lockdown model for the week. So she has to keep to our protocols and everything else. Okay, so slightly different in normal times. However, there's still a discussion with the model about what she has to bring or what I need to get in if I'm going to kind of contribute towards that and things really. With a client, it's more or less always what the client has. We do have a whole host of things here that we can use, specifically lacy gowns. That we can use. Obviously, in the current climate, we basically couldn't use the gown without kind of washing it and cleaning it. Well, we naturally do that anyway, all right? But if you had a product, even if it was a robe that your models were using all the time, you really want to actually kind of have a different robe for each of those models and so on with it. So again, as far as the lingerie is concerned, I know that some boudoir photographers have their own kind of lingerie, especially the pin-up and the vintage kind of styling, but it's never something that I've done. If we're buying in lingerie specific, it would be for a reason, because the model didn't have it and we were going to do a certain kind of shoot, but pretty much never for a client.
That's it, mate. Apart from a query about some more information, please, on experience and what it is.
Well, okay, thanks, Jay. So that comes to the end of today's session. So next week, we're going to be looking at the fuller figure and how we can control it and how we can look at it. And then obviously in session 9, the following week, we're going to be looking at the younger client, if they are a business for us or not. Yes, they're much easier to photograph, but are they more kind of difficult? We're looking at the fuller figure, as I said, next week in part 8, followed by the younger model in part 9, and then we'll finish off in the sales room in part 10. Thanks for joining us live today. If you'd like some information on the experience group, I'll follow it on now.